Hello, everybody. Nice to see you again. We are on our 8th class, is it? Or no, sorry, it's our 9th class, but our 8th law of the universe. Today we're going to be focused on inspired action, which is really kind of one of my favorites, the most important one, kind of. Because a lot of the laws, and we'll see as we go over them, they're just sort of apparent. They are. The universe is operating in these ways. Inspired action is about utilizing your understanding of the universe to make sure that you are not wasting your time and energy by acting and acting and acting and acting, or wasting your opportunities by just kind of hanging back and observing. Inspired action is about making the right choice at the right time. And sometimes when we're dealing with inspired action, last week I think I gave an example of, you want to cross the street not when the car is coming, but when there's no car. And there can be a big window when you're crossing a street, right? There could be a huge window of the inspired action to get across the street. The car's coming now, and there'll be another car there in 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes to cross the street before a car comes. Now, that's not generally the scenario that we're presented with in real day-to-day life. It's a little bit more like one of those very difficult where you can win a video game system, or you can win some really expensive prize. If you've ever gone down to an arcade, you pump a couple dollars into the machine and you got a chance to win an Xbox, right? If you can get this key into this little tiny thing, but it's going up, you're judging it from afar. You really got to make this hard eye judgment to see if you could get it in there. And I mean, really, it's some inspired action. It's just the right moment that you hit that button in order for it to work out. Now, in reality, taking inspired action in life is not as difficult as it is to win that machine with inspired action. Because you're sitting there and you're trying to calculate constantly and make a maneuver that is a 1 in a million kind of thing. And inspired action is indeed a 1 in a million, a 1 in a billion sort of opportunity for us to take. And it's not about sitting there going, I know somewhere within the middle of this is that thing, and I'm going to hit this button as soon as I know. Because you don't necessarily get that I know answer when you're looking at a machine and you think that you're going to use your eyes and your measurement and your discernment to figure out how to hit the button. Doing that alone takes you off of the spiritual path. Now you're on the mechanical path. You're doing 2 + 2 = 4. And if I can hit this button a little bit before the thing goes to the thing, I'm going to get it. Inspired action is about stepping back from that machine and knowing that the right time to hit that button is going to come to you. And you don't have to sit there and wait, trying to figure it out. You just kind of be. And then at some point, you're going to get hit with an inspiration to act. And when that inspiration comes and you hit that button, you're going to find that it went straight into the key. It went right in. I wasn't in the way. I didn't block it in any way, shape, or form. I heard this little twinge of intuition to act, and then there it is. It went right in there. I perfectly was able to be inspired. I got some divine action, you could even call it. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. Inspired action, how to take inspired action, how to know when we're taking inspired action, when we're not taking inspired action, and everything around it that goes into creating your world through the actions that you take. We're going to go through the universal laws right now to kick us off. And they go like this. We've got them broken into little threes. We got our first three, our second three, our third three. These first 9 are sort of the body of creation, the possibilities within the mind. And then these possibilities get repeated with the remaining laws of the universe. And then the 13th law, attraction, which I like to call the law of creation, is all of these laws working together to basically make you, who is a creator, a God walking around on the earth, who just isn't thinking of themselves in that way, is not realizing their true power, their true potential within the circumstances that they are living. So to kick this off, we've got the law of one. I like to look at the law of one as just sort of the law of oblivion. Before there was anything, before there was any thought at all, there was literally nothing. There was oblivion. No thought, no physical anything, no color, no sound, nothing. Real, legitimate emptiness, right? But one day, this emptiness woke up, and from within this void of nothing came the mind of the universe, which is a part of this nothing. And the mind, which is now split up into infinite little different pieces of itself, inanimate pieces and animated pieces like myself or you, we are all still technically part of this oneness. And you can tell that you're a part of the oneness because the oneness is ultimately an observer. So oblivion, is just sort of the observation of the nothing. And then mind came out of that. And even though mind is thinking things and creating things, there's still forever this cosmic observer who anchors every thought we have by observing it. As we go, I'm not really feeling great today, because you had a bunch of mechanical thoughts about how you weren't feeling great today? Or is it more that you had a thought about like, oh, I'm like so hot, oh, my body's really killing me, and your mind, this observer, the inert observer, observed all those thoughts. So there's a mind, and then there's a nothing. And your nothing is present within your mind. This brings us to the third law, the law of polarity. We are very, very much representative of these beings where we're capable of this observation, And really at our best, we tend to be observing things and then making some nice thoughts about them and then coming back, trying not to respond immediately to a different thing at any given moment, because we know that our initial reaction isn't always the best, right? So that part of us that is the observer is the part of us that is one. And the part of us that is, hey, maybe we should try it like this, or maybe I'm a little too hot, or maybe that's the part of us that is the mind. All is one with this oblivion, and all is mind. What came first, the chicken or the egg? The idea for the chicken, the idea for the egg. The idea always comes first. So this is the idea, and this is the observer. Idea and observer. Idea is like judgment and thoughts on a thing. Observation is just sort of taking it in, And you tend to, when you're operating from the mind and you're observing different things, you're observing it from a particular point of vibration, a point of relativity. Wherever your vibration is, you're going to be looking at this thing outside of yourself based on its relativity to you. And you will be sort of judging where it is based on that. Versus the oneness is sort of observing things very, very starkly. Like, yes, there are two things. That is what the observer thinks. But the mind might think, I feel crowded by these two things. The mind has a sort of a thought on like whatever it's experiencing. And the observer is just sort of like noting what's happening. Now, the fourth law of the universe is vibration. Everything vibrates. The universe itself is a polarized thing. It's made up of this one thing that is inert and this mind, which is definitely moving, and they're one. They're separate, but they're still together. So the fundamentals of the universe, even though there's a small part of it that is asleep and will always kind of be asleep, it is coming to life and it is fundamentally moving. Okay? So when you go through vibration, there's a lot of different states. If you looked at water, you could have water in a physical, hard, firm, ice. You could have it in its gas state. You could have it as a liquid. All of these states of the water have to do with how the water is vibrating. The molecules are getting further apart from each other, and now it's becoming more liquid. Oh, they're getting closer and they're slowing down. It's becoming more solid. It's becoming more ice. This is similar to how all of the different molecules in the universe are choosing how they want to come into existence and operate. Now, when it comes to you and your body, your physical body, a lot of people don't understand this. There's a really great book called The Field that can show it to you in some really amazing scientific ways. But what did I say? The idea comes first. So when a baby is, genesising, becoming the sperm and the egg are connected together, right? In that moment, the first thing that happens is actually the creation of the energetic field that will pop into existence to grow the organic thing. A field of information that you can't physically touch, but it's there. A physical, energetic representation, you could see it on that level, is there. And the fetus and the cells, all the cells, just the one cell and the osmosis and all the stuff that happens when a baby starts forming, right? It all happens inside of this field, inside of the energy field where the idea for the baby is, where the idea for Jesse is. Jesse was just a field, and one day Jesse's going to grow into this guy, and I look like this, right? And I still have this field. This field has just gotten bigger, okay? It's just become a larger and larger field. It was a tiny little field that was holding my fetus for whatever, and this field had my vibration in it. I've spoken about this a couple times of it's not like Jesse's got the gene to be straight and somebody else has the gene to be gay or whatever. It's more, Jesse is this vibration. This vibration is going to lead him down a lot of different paths. It may so happen that Jesse's not going to become a homosexual in his relationships. He'll become a heterosexual because some of the energetic things about Jesse, this makes him feel comfortable, right? Somebody else, it's not that genetically they're gay or genetically they're this or that. It's the circumstances, previous circumstances, the energy that developed before this life and what point that energy got itself to. And now where is it coming into this world? And how is it going to play up against where it has been placed? Where it has been placed in the universe? What other things are vibrating next to it that might influence and affect it? So who you are and who you're going to be, it's not necessarily really determined on any superficial level of oh, Jesse's going to love comic books. There is just aspects to your energy that may lend themselves in a lot of different places. But who knows, maybe if things had been a little bit different, instead of me having a fascination with comic books, I'd have a fascination with wrestling, professional wrestling. And that'd be the same thing. They're like heroes and whatever. It would match my energy in the way that it needs to. So we are all vibrating very uniquely, and there's not one of us who has the same vibration as another. See all these studies done on twins and stuff like that? So neat, because they're always so different. And it's very neat, too, actually, to apply some of the laws of the universe when you see some of these twins, because what you'll often see is that the twins have become polarized. Or at least they become polarized in some areas. Like this twin's really, and because this twin really liked that, the other twin was like, screw that, man, I'm going the other way. This is happening in our society all the time, in our families all the time. So we're all unique vibrations, and in this world, we are essentially out of balance no matter what we do, because the original balance is this oneness that's just sort of observing and everything's perfect and it's not moving anywhere. So every time we take on a vibration, we're essentially making a choice outside of inertia, outside of the cosmic nothing, right? So to make any choice is to make a vibration. My vibration is this vibration. This is just my metaphor, right? Ta-da! Now my vibration is wada! My vibration is ka-da! Now, for every one of these poses, I could show you a relative pose, right? So like, if we're talking about like dancing, like these are like dance moves. So I'm like, yeah, dance move number 1. So the relative to position to this would be, or maybe you'd want to take it even further along and you'd want to send me opposite. So I'm facing the opposite direction and I'm putting in the opposite direction. You can think about it a lot of different ways, but essentially each one of these movements is the counterbalance to the other movement. So if I step in this direction, now my weight is heading this way. To get myself to be balanced back over in that other direction, I want to take a step in this direction, right? Now I'm balancing myself back. So in the world that we live in, we're looking for the counterbalance to our energy because we miss this. We miss feeling this. We miss feeling the oneness, the total, the peaceful, I have everything. Now, if we can take the vibration that we have and find its proper relativity, we will have balanced the imbalance of the universe. This vibration, with its actual relative vibration in reality, will create gender, which is the 6th law, the law of gender. Gender is just the notion that there are only 2 kind of fundamentally, slightly opposing energies in the universe, and that when brought together in the right way, they will balance each other and essentially bring this out of balance random vibration back into the oneness, which is really where it wants to be, because that's like where it came from. Oh, it used to be one and now it's just this other thing. Now, the thing to realize though about gender too is that this doesn't have to be you and a spouse or a partner. Gender is you. You are female energy mixed with masculine energy. Masculine and feminine exist within everybody. I've talked about this before now many times. I'm a kind of fundamentally very feminine person, like as a guy. Like my energy's nurturing. I'm very creative, kind of soft in a lot of my at putting on the masculine vibe and carrying the masculine vibe. But my nature is a little bit more feminine. Feminine came more naturally to me. You know, I had to a little bit learn how to be a guy, be a tough guy, right? Because there's all these things that come in association with that. But when you come to gender and masculine, feminine, what you're really looking at is just these different energies that are neither good nor bad. Both of them can be bad when they're misaligned. Both of them are very good when they are aligned. But fundamentally, gender is a state of energy, the 2 different states of energy that exist within our bodies, and we're always trying to bring these to balance for ourselves, to make ourselves closer to this oneness, to get ourselves closer to that state. But of course, looking for relationships outside of ourselves, finding somebody who's in relative vibration to us will usually bring the most satisfying relationship. And now that relative vibration, it doesn't always have to be the complete opposite pole. Sometimes it can be a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, but relativity, relative to where you are, they find themselves. And there is a natural sort of link to each other that comes from all these simple patternings. Okay, so moving on to 7, 8, and 9, and this is the group we're going to be talking about today. Last week we did perpetual transmutation of energy, and we found out that the nothing is a source of energy because what came from the nothing? Everything. Literally everything came from the nothing. So what is the nothing? It's potential. There's a perpetual transmutation of this potential from the observing thing to let's do something with it. And the thing that drives this is inspired action. Now, the way I've been teaching the 13 universal laws is from the beginning of the universe. And that, I mean, not the physical universe. Nothing exists without mind. Everything starts with the mind. So all of this is just a mind. No color, except as an idea. No shape, no size, no measurement, except as an idea. All ideas come from here, okay? And the perpetual transmutation of energy and inspired action. Now, inspired action, you know, the word inspired really kind of throws itself off of my list the way that I'm presenting it. You know, I'm talking about just the mind and no physical anything, like, you know, but inspired is like it's coming from the ether, it's coming from literally already talking about nowhere, nothing. So how is the nothing having inspired action? Well, it does. It's going to come to be associated as inspired action for us as we get on the ball of going, oh, okay, yeah, we want to be taking these certain actions. But the inspired action that we take is essentially all dictated by the laws of the universe. You know, the inspired action of the mind of God so far is to rest, think, polarize, hot, cold, left, right, you know, far extremes. And now as it's looking at all of these extremes, it's like, okay, it doesn't have to all be extremes. Let's pick one. Let's pick a vibration. And now that we have one vibration, it's just degrees of vibrations. There's infinite possible vibrations. Like this vibration, it's like, oh my God, there could be an infinite number of vibrations, Jesse. Yes, but even though there's an infinite number of vibrations, there is always a perfect relativity for every single one of them. A perfect relativity for every single one of these infinite vibrations. So the inspired action is we're asleep, we're awake, we're polarized, we're trying this, we're trying that, we're trying this, we're trying that, we're trying to get into balance. We're perpetually transmutating ourselves. We are taking action that largely falls into this sort of thing, this gradient that we have. The thing that I like to show right here of, you know, there was nothing, there was something, and now we've got polarity, we've got the thing in the middle, we've got these three things. This creates the paradigm that we're living in. And then within that paradigm of the black and white, we add in the gradient of the colors, right? Now here's all the gradients of colors. So the inspired action that we're talking about here is this. It's this mechanical sort of like, okay, we've created the parameters, black and white, now there's a middle, there's gray, now we've got some degrees and we've got some octaves, and we're just going to keep on messing with this system until we have done everything, which is where we go to next. So 7, 8, perpetual transmutation of energy, inspired action, cause and effect. Number 9, the law of cause and effect. All of these things are just causes and effect. Everything is essentially leading to the next thing. And everything's going by degrees, kind of spiraling down a thing until it gets to the next octave, and then it's like, okay, cool. New game, same as the old game. And that's why they like to say, as above, so below. As above, so below, because it's just a perpetual machine that is doing the same pattern over and over and over again. And once it gets to this end pattern of 9, we've got our rhythms set. We've got a lot of rhythms. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got some rhythms. Beyond the rhythms come the correspondence. The correspondence is when we go around in a circle and we get around to a certain place and all of a sudden we're like, hey, wait a second. It's kind of like I was just here. I was just there and now I'm here. And these things are corresponding to each other. If you were doing music, you'd be going, starting with your C, ending with your C as you change to the higher octave or you go down to the lower octave. We are changing our correspondence. And that's a lot like changing octaves. And then finally, 12, the law of infinite compensation. These patterns are gonna go forever. Because what came first, the chicken or the egg? Neither one of those answers is right. The idea comes first. The field comes first, and you grow in the field, right? So, if idea comes first, tell me, if I sat you in a chair and I told you to just keep thinking about things for as long as you could, how long would you be in the chair? forever. Or until you got so darn tired that you just collapsed on the floor or something, because you could just keep thinking. Has anybody ever been in bed? I used to have, it was just so funny. I remember the story I always say, thinking about dreaming, daydreaming, and then coming to midget wrestling. And I remember I was in my bed and I had like this strange vision of these little people and they were wrestling. And I was like, what am I even thinking about? And I sat there and I couldn't get back. I couldn't get back to the original thought that had brought me to this place. All I had recognized was that I had been thinking for a long time, and now all of a sudden I was thinking about midgets and them wrestling, and if they were getting hurt, and like all these weird things. I was like having this strange, and then I was like, how did this happen? You don't know how it happens. If you just sit and you think, you just keep going. Infinitely. Infinite compensation. So anything that can be thought has already been thought for all intents and purposes. Granted, sometimes new scenarios are being sort of introduced where a scenario, where a thought could finally be had that couldn't have been had yesterday. But in theory, essentially, the basis for every thought that could ever be is already had. It's already been invented by the mind of the universe. And that's why when we get to 13, we talk about the law of creation and not the law of attraction, because the law of attraction is a notion that everything's outside of you and you need to attract it into you. Reality of the situation is you are one with everything, everything is mind, everything exists within your mind, and everything is actually closer to you, closer to being inside of you than it is far away from you outside. Your mind and our minds collectively are putting things outside of you. But it is up to you to plant the thing in your brain to bring it into existence in the first place. The idea existing in your brain is what frees you to have the circumstances match up with what you believe, what you think. Okie dokie. So this is our basic introduction to universal law. If I have any questions, you can let me know, and Michael, you can let me know if there's any questions online. Good? Okay. So now I am going to get into the law of inspired action a little bit. So let's see. What is inspired action? And now this is inspiration versus a guess. Even an educated guess. Remember we were talking before about that, that machine, and we're going to try to win like a Game Boy system or a PlayStation in it. And, you know, an educated guess is how we approach those systems. We look at the thing, we judge the speed, it's moving at this rate, okay, and I'm going to hit the button here. That is not what we're talking about here today. We are talking about waiting for lightning to strike your brain. You know, in that great scene in Hook when Bob Hoskins' Shmi is trying to explain to Captain Hook that he has an idea. I've had an apostrophe. Lightning has just struck my brain, right? That is inspiration. That is inspired action. In the movie, they demonstrate the inspired action. Bob Hoskins has the inspired action. He says, Hook, you're gonna make Pan's kids love you. And Hook goes, Shmi, I've just had the greatest idea. Tomorrow, I'm gonna make Pan's kids love me. Who had the inspired idea? Bob Hoskins, Shmi. He shared it with the other guy. The guy went, yep, that's a great idea. We're off to the races. That is how things work in real life. Inspiration comes, it hits, and it sends you off. So when we're talking about inspired action, it's really nothing that you have to muscle. It's nothing that you have to be like crouching behind a table waiting for so much. I mean, unless that's part of the thing. Unless the first part of your inspired action was, go crouch behind that table there and wait. The next part may be, jump now, you know. But for the most part, when we're waiting for inspired action to take, it just means that we're going about our other business. Because we know that when the inspired action comes along, we're going to go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, neato, right? And we're going to talk about that a little bit more and what we're talking about here. Because really, we're talking about Inspired action is not action, and it's not inaction. Action is just, I gotta do something. Like, how many times have you been somewhere in your life and you've been like, oh my God, I gotta do something. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I gotta do something. That's not inspired action. That's when we're not connected to the source, we're not connected to all of these patterns, and we're just grasping at straws to do something. So just taking action, just taking action may lead you to other things. But ultimately, we want to be consciously taking the inspired action, okay? And the inspired action would be, I don't know if I've ever told this joke before, I tell it a lot. There was a man who was drowning from a flood, and there's a big flood coming, and God, please come save me. So a few minutes later, a rowboat comes to his house. It's one of his neighbors, and he's got a rowboat. Hey, come on, get in the rowboat with me. And the guy's like, no, I'm praying to God. God's going to save me. So the guy's like, all right. So he leaves. Then a little while later, the water's getting even higher. Now a military vessel comes. They throw him a lifesaver, and he throws it back to him. He's like, no, I'm fine. God's going to save me. And they're like, really? He's like, okay. So now a few more hours go by, and he's praying to God, God, come save me. And a helicopter comes. And they lower down like a gurney for him to get into, and he says, no, God's gonna save me. And the guy's like, all right. So they leave and they go on to the next thing. An hour later, the man drowns. And he gets up to heaven, and he runs through the pearly gates, and he runs right up to God, and he goes, hey, what the hell, man? Making me look like an idiot. I told everybody that you were gonna save me. What's the deal? God looks at him, he says, I sent 2 boats and a helicopter. What's your problem, man? And that is inspired action. This man was not taking the inspired action. He was distracted by some vision that he must have had in his mind of what this action that God was going to take was going to look like. I need to get out of this situation here. Okay, here's a boat. I don't like that boat, it's too small. Here's another boat. I don't like that boat either. All right, here's a helicopter, we'll fly. Oh, you don't like to fail to take the inspired action. If you're not going to take the inspired action, well, you're going to die. And it's not going to be so much of that, but your plan is going to die. The thing that you're trying to do is not going to succeed because you're not listening to the messages that the universe is bringing to you. And talk about what a visceral example. Here is a boat. You are drowning. It's easy to get it there. And this is the wonderful thing about so many of the parables that you'll find in Vedic tradition or around the world, is that the parable is just sort of an extreme version of a scenario that can give you an inkling of what's going wrong here in that scenario. Okay? And I actually have some more parables for you that I'm going to share with you in a little bit so you can understand that much more. So what is inspired action? It's the smallest effort. It's the least effort. It's a inner burst of enthusiasm, is usually sort of the thing. When you're like, oh, you know what I'd like to do? You know what I should do? It's funny because sometimes, I'll talk, I won't get ahead of myself. There's always so much to talk about, but I'll save that. Your inner joy and your bliss, I got to encourage you guys to dream a little bigger. Nothing you love is crazy. Love is always universal. When it comes to something like inspired action, sometimes people will have an inspiration that frightens them. Maybe you've got this weird inclination like you should move to Florida or something, and you can't, that seems a little scary to you. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna move to Florida? I'm like, I don't know. Or maybe you've got an idea for a story. A really beautiful idea for some story, but you're not sure if it's beautiful. You're unsure. And I want to tell you what I tell every creative person who I meet. Never think for a second that something that you really love, that excites you, that fills you with any amount of passion, will not be loved by others. You are one with everybody, okay? We're all sharing the same mind. If it is in your heart and it is in your mind to love something, to love a concept, to appreciate whatever it might be, a character or an idea, I promise you, other people will share that love with you. It is impossible for it not to be. Because if it didn't exist in the world, it wouldn't exist within you. Okay? So we really have to honor the inspired action that comes, because sometimes the inspired action is like, hey man, you should write a movie about a little doll that gets possessed and has a knife and it's called Chucky. And maybe the guy who thought about that movie when he first thought of it thought, this is the worst idea I've ever had. Well, a little doll's gonna go around and kill everybody? That's so stupid, nobody's ever gonna buy. And then he went, I don't know, maybe, and he did it. And fast forward, we've got the Chucky franchise, you know, like that, an idea that might seem a little weird. You know, and there's tons of them. There's tons of ideas that might seem weird. And I don't know if maybe, if hopefully the Chucky example is enough for you to kind of see an idea that might seem a little weird until it's executed. And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh wow, yeah, I do see the merit here in this thing. When I was a child, I used to have really good ideas all the time. And I didn't know exactly how to get to the heart of what it was that I was seeing and why I liked the idea. So sometimes I would go to like my father or I'd go to a friend or something and I'd be like, hey, I got this idea, what do you think? And they would destroy my idea. They would just utterly obliterate it. And then I would fold it up into a little ball and I'd be like, well, I guess not. And I don't know how many great ideas I lost like that. Just because I wasn't in the strong enough position to actually be able to deliver my idea the right way and show how much value it had, didn't mean that those ideas did not have so much value. And I know that I brought them to my father and I brought them to my friends or whatever because I felt something really strong in me that said they were good ideas. And it took me a long time before I was able to recognize that if I believe it strongly, other people will too. That's how you find the things that succeed. Everything that has ever succeeded, when you go to the people and you go like, how did this succeed? What happened? It all starts with like well, we kind of really loved this and we thought maybe we should do that, and then like it blew up. Love is the basis of creation, and love will spur expansion and growth like you will not believe. So when you hit on something that you really, really love and care about, never be afraid to ride that. You know, if you keep getting this inspiration about a story or a thing or something, don't allow yourself to go, oh, that's cheesy or that's stupid or I don't know about that or whatever. Inspiration is inspiration, and sometimes you will be blown away by the places that your inspirations will lead you to, places that you didn't even know you needed to get to, but they were the place from which the thing that you really wanted could come about. So inspired action is really, it's the most important thing, and we so often get hung up on it by not recognizing the inspired action when it's there, not listening to that idea that we have or that move that we should make, whatever it is, or not listening to anything, just doing tons of action, tons of motion. All of these things are the reverse of the path of least resistance, which is what we're looking for here with our inspired action. So I just said the path of least resistance, you know, which is what Abraham Hicks always likes to talk about. You know, hard work versus inspired action. Now, I can look back at my career in comic books. I did a lot of hard work. However, all of my success comes from the inspired action that I took. And I didn't know that I was taking inspired action at the time. But if we went back and we looked at things, I could kind of tell you, here was a year where I took a lot of action working on scripts and doing things that were neither here nor there, that didn't really go anywhere. And here's the moment where I met Dan DiDio, who was the head of DC Comics at the time, and I happened to be inspired to mention that he and I had a mutual friend who had just passed away. And he happened to be inspired to ask me what I had gotten, and I happened to tell him that I had gotten a poster of a comic book cover that I had written for Marvel. And this interaction is why I got to work at DC Comics. Then he invited me to do a thing. You know, and that led ultimately to them thinking about doing a Twilight vampire comic book, something like Twilight. And they thought, well, maybe Jesse would be good for this because, you know, I was the rock star's kid. I'd like make music, you know. So they saw that I was a good idea. So this was all inspiration, right? That stuff happened easy for me. Oh my God. You want me to tell you about the years I spent working on my Blade pitch and script that took a year going through Marvel? I had been given the greatest compliments that I'd ever received, all of these accolades within the pitching process, only for it to finally get to the person who needed to see it. A couple months too late, couple weeks too late, they had already approved Blade to be used in this big X-Men crossover that was coming up, and now it was no longer possible for Blade or my pitch to go off. And meanwhile, that pitch, we'll talk about years, I was watching Marvel, and I'm going, which characters aren't being utilized? Who has fallen by the wayside? How do I beat this system? Not inspired action, action. Very good action. I could rationalize every action that I took. I could rationalize how beautiful my damn Blade pitch was, all this stuff. It wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be. It wasn't a part of the inspired action. It was something that I was muscling and muscling and muscling. And then easier things come along, these little bits of inspired action, and the job is yours. The job's in your hand. When it's right, it's right. The difficulty is an illusion, and we must open to seemingly wasting our time when inspiration strikes. Because, you know, this is like the thing, it's like, okay, well, I got writer's block. So what am I gonna do? Am I gonna go just like sit in front of my computer and bash my head against the wall? No, don't do that. That's a terrible idea. That's like saying, I'm really depressed. What should I do? Sit here and suck my thumb? No, probably not. Maybe you should call a friend. Maybe you should, you know, go to a bar. I don't know. Something other than lamenting and hardening and intensifying the awful situation that you're in. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be enjoying time. Because when does inspiration come to you, right? This was the example I wanted to give. So everybody has had this happen. You're trying to remember somebody's name, and you're like, oh, I can't remember his name. And you're like, give me a second. And like you're sitting there and you're thinking, and you're mechanically thinking, what is it? Is it Jim? Is it Jeff? Is it a B? Is it a D? How many letters are there in the alphabet again? You are practically perceiving every perception that you can think of. You finally just give up because you're like, oh God, it just won't come to me. As soon as you give up, 2 seconds later, oh, it's Bob. I can't believe I forgot it. His name's Bob. His name's Bob, man. It's Bob. It's Bob. I know it's Bob. I can't believe I couldn't have gotten that 2 seconds ago. His name is Bob. And how easy did Bob show up in your head? You didn't have to pull it out. All of a sudden, it was just there. I don't know if you have the game that I play with myself where I know, stop and it'll just come to you, right? Stop and it'll just come to you. But I still think I'm more clever than inspiration. So I'm still like, no, I can remember it. I'm gonna access it. And I get so close. You know, I'm like, oh, it was on the tip of my tongue. Oh, it was right there. I keep getting it. Almost. And then I finally give up because, Jesse can't beat the damn inspired action. And 2 seconds after I give up, what happens? The name. There it is, perfect, right in my brain. I got it. If that can happen when you're forgetting a name, no understand, believe. That can happen every second of every day for you, no matter what you are doing. Get out of the way of the thing and allow your inspiration to come in. Do something to facilitate a future goal. Okay, so a lot of times, and this is getting into this really practical understanding of things. We have come to a place where we have a lot of experience, right? So we know how things work. I do this, and then this happens, and I do that, and that happens. Or, you know, something like like say we're in traffic, something simple. The car in the front of the traffic, if he slows down, what happens? Everybody else has to slow down too, correct? Right? So we know that essentially the slowdown is coming from the car in the front who has decided to slow down, okay? Now, we might think to do something from behind this car to try and stop this car from its slow down behavior that's screwing us up. And I don't know, maybe we're crazy irrational and we rip the keys out of our ignition and we throw them out the window and try to hit the car that's all the way up in the front. Now, the keys out of your car, the car stopped moving. You didn't even hit the guy because he was too far. You couldn't throw it that far, right? Now, however, let's say the same scenario is going on. We've got, you know, like, and I'm sorry for this crass metaphor that I'm about to make up right here, because this is how I'm closing this. But let's say we're just like, man, I'm in the slowdown lane, and I know it's because there's a car up there who I can't reach and I got nothing to do with, who's slowing down. This is all so annoying. And then I go, what am I going to do? Well, certainly, I'm not going to be able to figure out what to do from this place of being frustrated about it. So let me chill out. Now I chill out, and 2 seconds later, I have the inspiration to adjust my mirror because it's like it's glaring in my eye a little bit in a bothersome way. Well, when I adjust my mirror, the mirror hits the sun, which reflects off a building that our cars are driving by, and puts light straight into the front car that's driving too slow, and he literally pulls off the road and lets everybody zip by him because now the sun's in the guy's eye, and he had to get off the road. Could you have imagined that you would have had the power to shine the sun in the guy's eyes who was in the front of the thing to get him to move out of the way? No, never in a million years. You never would have made a thought that I can become the sun in some way and I can change the behavior of the person in the front. Nobody thinks like that. And because we don't think like that, because we think about coming from the back of this car, trying to get at that car, trying to yell at him from behind, we have convinced ourselves there is no way forward. There is no progress to be made. I can't fix anything. We're not going to be driving fast with a slow guy in the front. Well, sure, if you're looking at it from the position that you're in and viewing that only what you can do is what's possible. Things can happen. The universe can adjust for you when you are in alignment with it. And in alignment with what you want, things will come out. I have some cool examples that I'm going to show in just a second. So there's a whole bunch for me. So I've been here, this place that we broadcast from. This place is called Tranquility Within. Lovely, lovely place. I was looking for a part-time job, and I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. I was being guided more to a kind of spiritual stuff, and I wasn't exactly sure what that was going to look like, but I was interested in that. And I really didn't know. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know exactly how to approach it. And one day I got inspiration. And the inspiration was, there's probably a spiritual Long Islanders page on Facebook. And I don't have Facebook anymore, but at the time I did. And I was like, great, I'm gonna go and put myself on that page, and maybe I could find something there. Maybe I'll find a job, maybe something. I don't even think I even got that far. As like, I knew I was looking for a job, I knew I was looking for things, but I didn't get that far. I go the next day, I go on to Facebook. Oh, there is a spiritual Long Island spiritualist page, which I wasn't sure. I just had that thought that maybe there would be. And I go to the page, and the third post down is Tranquility Within. And they were looking for somebody to come help with like a couple days. And they're set up. They've got this big room in the back. They've got all these different rooms. They have all these different healers who work out of there. And that's the stuff that I want to do. I want to teach some classes. I want to do some things in this world. So I get inspiration. Go check Facebook, spiritual. Third post is what I needed, right? So flash forward again. I had another inspiration. This was even more recently. I had gotten together with some musicians. I liked them. They were nice, but there were some things about them that kind of rubbed me the wrong way and started making me think that what I really wanted was just like a more relaxed setting. I wanted musicians that I could be friends with, that, you know, weren't all business, and that they just loved like I love to make music, and that if I could find some people who love to make music and would just love to get together once a week and work on some things intelligently, that I would succeed because I'd be able to do it the way to do it. And I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I had this vision of like writing a post. Like I wish I could just make like this beautiful post about how I feel about music and that I love it and that I miss having friends that I could just enjoy making music with. And I thought maybe that would speak to somebody. Now, I got so many benefits out of what I did here because for me, I'm Dee Snider's son, Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. If you don't know that, Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, that's my dad. And I've made music my whole life. It's always been a very weird sort of barrier for me with my dad being in the music business, just because it kind of creates a very weird perspective on me, on my motivations for making music. I love music, that's my motivation. But it always like, oh, is he doing this because he thinks it's easy, or like, you know, or at least these were things that mattered to me. So, when it comes to music, the majority of the time that I am putting together a band or whatever, anybody that I'm talking to, any musician I'm talking to, they know who my father is. They know the sort of caliber of musician I am, or things that I've done, things that I've achieved. And so often, I feel like I'm attracting kind of superficial musicians, just because they can't help themselves. They're guys who are a little bit geared towards the spectacle, which my father's geared towards, and he already is a rock star. And that idea of celebrity, like, it's already attached to me. So people who like that, they're like, yeah, I want to be a part of his band. Now, this inspiration that I had to write this message the way I wanted to write it, and to go, once again, to a Facebook group on Long Island for Long Island musicians that I had been turned on to. And I wrote this message, and for the first time ever, I got two musicians, two very, very talented, wonderful, sweet musicians who are humble and have no idea who my father was. I mean, now they do, because we've spoken conversations here, but their motivation had nothing to do with, oh, Jesse's this and I might have an opportunity here. They were listening to what Jesse was speaking about. And Jesse was speaking about his love of music, camaraderie, with playing with people, and wanting to experience joy making music. And I put that forward, and none of the people who knew, the people who saw it, were the people who I needed to see it. The two guys who would come and they would make me feel, one, like I was worthwhile for who I was because of what I said. They were there because of my heart. They were there because of my post that I made that meant something to me. And I had accidentally been able to find musicians who had not come to me because of superficial reasons. I got a gift from the universe through inspired action that I didn't even know I needed. And like, that's an amazing one. And I mean, all of these examples I feel like are so powerful when it comes to this kind of thing. So I'm going to share a couple more. Hopefully you guys will humor me. So this was a really interesting one. I was having a tough evening. It was like a little rundown. I don't remember the whole justification, whatever. But I decided it was a late night, and I was like having trouble sleeping, kind of thing. And I decided I was going to go have some marijuana. So I was going to go have a puff before bed to help me sleep. And I don't know why, but as I'm like getting up, and I told you I was in a weird mood, and I was having a hard time sleeping. And that's why I was like, some marijuana will help me fall asleep. And I'm going to go do that. But as I got up, the channel, the app or whatever I was using, it showed that the movie The Perfect Storm was available. Now, I hadn't seen The Perfect Storm in a very, very long time. I'd seen it maybe like a decade ago when it came out. It's with George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg and, what's his name? Owen Wilson. John C. Reilly. But for whatever reason, my inspiration hit that I should hit play on that movie because my children were sleeping in the bed. They were next to me. And that the noise, the white noise, would keep them asleep. And it wouldn't make it so quiet when I got up to go to the bed, and then when I came back, and it would be nice to have a little background noise. And I was like, The Perfect Storm. I was like, that's a really beautiful, nice movie or whatever. Well, little do I know, this movie was keyed up for me from my spirits. The other side was like, yo, Jesse, time for you to watch The Perfect Storm. And it so encapsulated things that I was going through at that moment. Me and my high school sweetheart were technically still not divorced, but we're going through a divorce. And one of the main story arcs in there is with John C. Reilly, who I adore, and he's not seeing his kid because he's always out. I think they're divorced, and he's not really seeing his child a lot. And on the boat, these guys, I'm not really spoiling a lot for the thing, but it's based on a true story, and they don't come home. And there's a lot of things that, are learned from this, by the various people. But I mean, the very last thing that John C. Reilly says as he's drowning in the boat, and he just says, this is going to be so hard on my little boy. And I can't tell you exactly what things were important for me to see in that movie, but everything that was being dealt with were things that I was dealing with, things that were really hurting me at the time. And I think to see the depiction of somebody else going through what I was going through proved that I wasn't the only one, and these were universal feelings and universal experiences, and that they were to be discovered and grown past. It was a huge boon to my existence. And I had a whole bunch of reasons why not to. I saw that already, or that's not that good, or whatever, it might wake up the kids, or but I think I was a step away from leaving, and then I was like, oh, okay. And I just went back and I went click, click, and I put it on, and then I left. When I came back, I watched the entire movie. And I told you, I couldn't sleep. I went to go take a puff because I was like, oh, I need some help sleeping. And I ended up instead having this wonderful moment of catharsis with this film and dealing with loss and dealing with relationships and with children and family. And, what a gift. Yes?
Just a comment, again, there's a bit of a delay, so.
Oh, okay.
Back to what you were saying about the guys who answered your ad.
Yeah.
They didn't know who your dad was.
Uh-huh.
Lyle says he didn't know who your dad was until a year or two after he discovered you, and it didn't change the way that he viewed you because he was already inspired by your music.
Oh, that Lance didn't know who my father was. Oh, Lyle. Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, for me, my preference is always that people don't know, only because we're minds, and these things, they just tend to create ideas in people's heads that shouldn't be there. And for me, I was just kind of constantly throughout my life going, what? Why do you think that? And it would always come down to, oh, well, you're Dee Snider's kid, and I just always be like, Jesus, will somebody please stop telling everybody this one little piece of information about me that keeps changing everybody's thought process about who I am? So for me, it always has been a big barrier. But you know what? Honestly, if I'm being honest with myself, it's been a barrier for me in my own mind. Me thinking about the way it might affect people. And it probably does affect people, here or there, or whatever. But me reacting to it every time certainly is only just perpetuating it. So the more, as I've gotten older, I don't like fight against it in any way, shape, or form, which is why I never in a million years even thought that I could escape the notion of musicians finding me who wouldn't know my father was. The idea that I was sitting talking to two people for like an hour, and then like at the end of the meeting, they were like, wait, your father's D. Snider? Wow, I had no idea about that. Like that, I was like, wow, did that just happen? Like, I didn't know that that was possible to happen. So, but you know, you open your mind and then all of a sudden anything's possible. More recently, I was looking for a drum out on me, but the one drummer that came from a little bit of inspired action, I was hanging out with my buddy Mike, who does our filming here, and Mike was filming at a studio nearby in Patchogue, and I said to him, and I didn't really like know what I was saying, like, because it was like I had to walk there to go see him, and I was like, should I just come down and like say hey or whatever, because it was a mutual friend of ours that we were shooting something for, and he was like, yeah, I'll come down. Like, but like neither one of us is the point we're thinking anything of it. But I was just kind of like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna go see Mike. So I go and I walk down to Mike's thing. I walk in the door. First thing happens, open up the door, is the other guy, the mutual friend of mine and Mike's, is standing there, and he's talking to a guy. And I go, oh, hey, how's it going? You know, and I'm talking to my friend, Paul. And Paul's like, hey, this is the greatest drummer on Long Island. So literally, I walk in the door, and there's the friend of the friend who I want to see, and he's standing with one person who he describes to me as the best drummer on Long Island. I'm currently looking for the best drummer on Long Island, and here he is. You know, what are the odds? And when something like that happens, I go, something tells me this is going to happen. Because do you see how the universe has conspired for this to happen? And how the universe has been conspiring against other things. And that's usually how it goes. The universe is usually conspiring in a direction. And if you can take a hint about where it's trying to lead you, you're really going to be on the right track for yourself. So let's see. So this is like a slightly more complex one, but cool. So me and my family, I have been having a trouble with my mom and my dad in particular for a long time because of how much respect I have for them. I hold them in such a high regard that when they let me down, I kind of still refuse to give up on them. And then it kind of becomes like they're gonna make it up to me. Like, they're gonna turn this around. I believe in them. And this inability for myself to change my expectations about my family, sort of like what they're capable of showing me and how they're capable of dealing with me. I keep hoping for more, hoping for better, because I think that they're so awesome that if I'm capable of getting anywhere better, they must be capable of getting to that same place too. But just because you are in a place doesn't mean that the other person is going to be in the same place or is going to go to the same place. And you're really just hurting yourself by not changing your expectations on the thing. Like, I realized with my family, it wasn't so much, like, I was starting to get mad at myself because I was starting to think that maybe I was really mad at them. Maybe I was really like a mad guy, like I was a mad person. And I really didn't like that. I didn't like thinking that I was a mad, made me feel like I was a bad guy. I'm a bad guy, I'm a mad guy, I'm just mad at everybody. And really, the madness that I was feeling was actually coming from this choice that I had made where I wasn't going to lower my expectation of them. And I just was refusing. I was like, no, no, no. Those guys are exceptional. I believe they can do it. Like, and I was just gonna sort of like, I'll be here waiting until you guys lift the mountain. Recently, I got into like a little bit of a fight with my mom. Kind of similar. Basically, she was embodying the energy that I get disappointed when she embodies, and I was like, and I got mad at her, and I yelled at her, and I had to apologize and say, oh, I'm sorry, because that's not me. I don't want to be the person who gets mad and yells, but my family would compromise me sometimes, and I know it's not their fault that they compromised me. It's my fault that I allowed myself to be compromised by them, because I care so much, and I like them so much, and I think they're so great. But all of these like super care, super things was putting me into this crazy spin with them, because I wasn't changing my expectations, and also I was, what's the word? Sorry, I just have to, this is all existential stuff that I'm trying to explain. I wasn't defending myself. It seemed like I was defending myself. I was moving my mouth, and I was saying things, seemingly defending myself. But ideologically, the things they said tended to scare me off my path, and I'd go running. And even though on some level it felt like I was defending myself, because I would bluster. Like I remember I was kind of like yelled at my mom on the phone during that conversation. When I finished, she was like, so do you feel better now? And it was a reasonable reaction. Do you feel, because like that was it. It was like, I was saying things out loud to defend myself, because that was the only way in which I was defending myself. Now, when I realized what was finally the thing in this instance, as I sort of like put up my shoulders and once and for all said, nope, I'm drawing a line, I'm not doing nothing. When I finally did that, I realized that every other time that I had thought I had done that, I had never done that, because I had done that, and then I went to a place of, well, they're my parents and I love them, and I should just say I'm sorry, and blah, blah, blah. I would always pull myself away from the thing and then try to approach it really humbly, really loving, really nice, never feeling like I actually stood up for myself. So I would never actually get to the place where I said, hey, I'm Jesse, and this is my sovereignty, and this is what I would prefer. I would talk about it, and then I would go back over to the place that they wanted me, right? And I'd be like, but this is what I really feel like. But I'll be over here. And this time, as I finally saw my problem was that I wasn't actually standing up to myself. I was caving in completely, and I was really, really bothering myself about the fact that I was caving in, and I was losing the path that I was on. My mother doesn't trust the path that I'm on. That's okay. She's on her own path. I'm on my own path. And I've been sort of perpetually disappointed that she won't kind of come to me and be like, hey, Jess, I know that I can't recognize the path you're on, but I believe in you. I believe in the path that you're on. I trust the path that you're on, and you can do it. I wanted her to do that really badly. Like, I felt like I needed her to say that to me, and that if she didn't say that to me, that I wouldn't be able to do it, that I wouldn't be able to do this, that I wouldn't be able to take this spiritual journey, follow these universal laws, and like that I needed my mom to say, it's okay, and I believe in you. But I needed to lower my expectations. That was what I needed to do. I needed to lower my expectations a really long time ago. If I had lowered my expectations long ago, I wouldn't have been perpetually frustrating myself and aggravating myself this whole time. And more than that, what I needed to do long ago was I needed to stand up for myself the right way. I was reminded of this time where I was taking ayahuasca in Los Angeles, and my mother didn't really trust my shaman who was delivering the medicine. She was very negative about him, very negative about my experiences, even though I was telling her that I was having the greatest experience of my life and that everything was going great for me, and that she was out of her mind. She didn't know what she was talking about. From this experience, she became convinced that she wanted to send me to Peru to go do ayahuasca like she did. I thought I was being sent literally to the same place that she went herself and that my brothers had gone. Turned out not to be true. She sent me to a comparable place that was completely different than her place. And I had a very strange and unique experience in Peru. I did not really get a psychedelic effect from the drugs, and I spent like a week in real deep meditation. And the meditation from my guides was, you need to stop listening to your mother. She is brilliant, she is wonderful, she is smart, but she does not know your path. And your path is about you learning how to follow your own heart. And every time you take your mother's advice, she scares the shit out of you, and you change up everything that you're doing. And it's true. It's true. If my mom were to come 10 years ago and say something about my hair or something, I would feel completely insecure about my hair. I wouldn't be able to stop thinking about my hair because my mom knows hair. And she said something about my hair. And that is the kind of thing that was going on with me and my mother. My mother's influence disturbs my garden in a very big way. And in this time, in this more recent time, my mother was offering for me to come down to California to come live with them for a minute so that I can kind of reset some things in my life because things have been a little bit crazy. But I'm already resetting things in my life. I love the life that I'm building for myself. It's really wonderful. It's going really nicely. And this moment where she was offering to sort of like change my life was really a moment right after I was really starting to feel like I had changed my own life and things were going the right way. And now, like a week later, here comes the biggest energy in my life, and they're like, you need to take another look at all this. I don't trust any of the things that you're doing. You got to try again. Come out here, come to mama, and start again. And I went, no. And that no was the first time I really had gone no, because I meant it. I went to Peru and I did the ayahuasca in Peru, and I didn't have a good time, and I spent a week and a half learning, don't listen to your mother. She is not on the same path that you're on. You're on a different path, right? And now I'm here and I'm like, no, I'm starting a band. I got jobs I like. Things are good. Everything's okay. And in an instance, I almost like threw it all away. Like I just need space from them and I need to be strong and sovereign and whatever it was. But in the same instance, I realized that, wait a second, why am I so mad in the first place? Okay, I stood up for myself, which I needed to, because that really all made me mad. And it's not fair that I should be made to feel this upset all the time. And then I went, but why am I so upset? What is upsetting me here? And I realized, disappointment. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in them. I'm always disappointed in them. Wait a second, maybe it's not them. Maybe I'm holding them to too high of a standard. Maybe my expectations are creating a perpetual situation where I'm always disappointed. They can't, like they've backed themselves into a corner. They can't do any better from the position that I've put them in. And then when I realized that, I went, oh, well, like, this is just a stupid scenario that's just breeding misery for everybody. I'm like, that's it, done, okay, I change, I don't care. I don't care. My mom, my dad, like, they're perfect as they are. They don't need to change in any way, shape, or form to surprise me or make me feel better about previous things that happened. It's all good. Done. Let's move on. Right? Now, that inspired action. I felt like I was inspired to get on that phone call. My brother Cody told me to get on the phone, talk to my mom. Michael was encouraging me to do the same. You know, everybody was like, yeah, you should do that. You know, speak to your family and like try to like work this stuff out kind of thing. So when I'm on the phone with my mom and it didn't go well, and I yelled at her, and I'm mad at myself because I yelled at her, and she said some things to me that I didn't like to hear, you know, it's all over again. I'm like, oh, ugly scenario, here we go. And I'm literally sitting there in the moment going, I thought this was inspired action. Like sitting there going, I thought this was supposed to be something that was going to be beneficial. And I couldn't see that a couple hours from there, I was going to get to the bottom of why I was so mad, that I was setting myself up for disappointment. I was going to get to the bottom of the fact that I wasn't really following through with standing up for myself. I was following through with saying I was sorry, but not with being strong. So now I finally saw it. I saw it like perfect. And I was like, hey, Mom, I appreciate this offer, but I'm doing great. It's not really anything that I need to take. However, I'd love to see you guys this Christmas. They're in Los Angeles, we're out here in New York, and I got my 4 babies, and we haven't been able to see their grandkids a bunch. And like, I'd love to see you guys for Christmas, and I will be on my best behavior, and there's no fight. I don't want to fight about any of these things anymore. I don't care. If you guys will let me be quiet, I would just love to come and hang out with my family, hang out with my kids, and have a nice time. And of course, when my mom heard that, she was like, what? Oh, that's great. And what did I do there? I said no to the thing that I didn't want to do, so I stood up for myself. And then I said, but how about this? You want to see me, you miss us, you're a little worried about me. I can make a guarantee that you can see me and that you can be less worried about this situation, whatever it is. I can't do that, but I can do this. That is a compromise that I had never made before. I was always stopping short of that, of really just making a change that would protect myself. Because at a certain point, I'd be like, that's your mom and your dad, okay? Come on. And then I'd be like, okay. And then I would pull myself to some really like sweet place where I'd be like, just loving them, singing their praises. And it was so funny though, because my parents couldn't necessarily appreciate that because they would get on the phone with me and I'd go back to being really angry because I wasn't standing up for myself. I wasn't standing up for myself, so I kept getting angry again. Now all of a sudden, I just made this choice. I feel so much better. I feel like I stood up for myself. I feel like, And little did I know that this sort of like sweet turn the other cheek thing that I had been doing prior to this was keeping me feeling very depowered. And it was keeping me feeling like I was letting people take advantage of me. As opposed to, I changed my opinion about everything and now there is no problem. The problems have disappeared because the problem was an invention of my own, all right? So we only got like 10 minutes left. I've got just a couple things to bring this home. How expectation can kill our inspired action. Okay. Expectation. I'd written a song a little while ago. It was like, it's all about your expectation. What you think before you know, where you've been before you go. So always keep your expectations low. And now, that's not the best spiritual message. The best spiritual message is to keep your expectations not even neutral. Not low, not high, not neutral, open. Keep your expectations open. Who fucking knows? And I'm sorry for any of you guys who don't like curse words. I love a good curse word where you can use it in a positive way. Who fucking knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Always keep your expectations open. Anything could happen. I talked about this before, about meditating on the idea of money falling from the sky and then being shown a vision of sort of like a drug cartel trying to ship money across the country and something going wrong and money actually falling out of the sky. And in an instance, I was shown that, oh wow, there was a instance in which money could just fall from the sky. And this is the thing. We do not need to block any pathways to success. There is no reason to be thinking or saying things that are shortchanging the things that are possible for any one of us, because anything is possible. And to limit your mind Sometimes you come up with good metaphors for some of these things. I really need to get like a notebook of metaphors so I can like write them down whenever I come up with a good one. Because then sometimes you're coming up with metaphors that are like, didn't really make sense, but you kind of get what I mean. Well, sometimes we don't know what we want because we can't recognize the vehicle mechanism of the universe as the boat that will get us there, right? So the guy where he's saying he's praying to God, God's going to save him from the flood. He wants essentially God to come out of the heavens and save him. That's what he's stuck on. What does he really want if he got down to it a little bit better? He wants out of the situation where he's drowning. But because of the way he's framed it, for him to be plucked out of this scenario, to be saved from this scenario, it's like I need the clouds to open up and a hand to come reach out and to pluck me out of this place, and therefore I will be saved. And if your thought process is that's the only way that you can be saved, then you will cancel the boat and cancel the other boat and cancel the helicopter when they're on their way to you, and you will die. You won't take the vessel, the vehicle needed to get you to the place. I didn't know that the way I was going to find the job teaching spiritual messages was going to be through a message on Facebook. It's like the most ridiculous thing. You know, you do a thing sometimes because, oh, well, I just thought, and sure enough, there was an apartment, or and then this happened. Things just kind of roll out like that when we are unconsciously following our inspiration. And oh, here's a little thing there. Oh, very nice, very nice. But we can start to block ourselves by all of the things that we think aren't possible, or all of the things that we think must happen in order for this other thing to happen. Like, in order for me to hang out with my family, they need to make me feel like, I mean, this isn't even true, but they need to make me feel like I am the God of the universe. And if they will not do that, then I will not hang out. Well, what's the most important thing here? Hanging out with your family or being the God of the universe? You know, more so now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of just want to hang out with my family. All right, are there any scenarios where we can get rid of the God of the universe part and get the main part that we want, the surviving? You know, I don't want to die from this flood. I'd like to have a relationship with my family. How do I get through this? Okay? We want to change so many little mechanisms and aesthetic things. You know, we want to change the window dressing of how it looks. And so often when that first boat comes, we're like, oh, I didn't want a rowboat. I wanted a speedboat. Like, this isn't the... But the rowboat might get you to the speedboat. So when that inspired thing comes, sometimes it won't look like the most desirable piece of cake you've ever eaten in your life. But when you can recognize that this is in line with what you were asking for, please always recognize that that is a mechanism of the universe trying to help you.
Quote, comment from Angela says, life is an inexhaustible well of opportunity.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You know, it's interesting. That makes me think of this parable. There's a story about this guy, and he's on this long journey, and he eventually gets to a river. And it's like all rocky and the woods there and stuff. It's like really like a rough looking riverbank. And he doesn't know what he's gonna do. He doesn't know how he's gonna get across this thing. So he decides that he's gonna make a raft. He'll take all of the rocks and the wood and stuff that's on the riverbank, and he's gonna tie it together. He's gonna make himself a ramp. And he makes a beautiful, beautiful raft and puts it in the water, crosses. And when he gets to the other side, he looks down at the boat and he goes, oh, it took a lot of work to make this boat. It's a really beautiful boat. I mean, like, I know it got me across the river, but like, should I take it with me? And he picks up this big raft that's made of like 6 or 7 trees. And he's got it on his back. And in the parable, the monk says, so what do you think? You think you should take the boat? What does everybody say? No, don't take the boat. The boat served its purpose. You got to the riverbank. Oh no, what am I going to do? Inspired action. I'm going to use all of those reeds and whatnot to make myself a boat, and I'm going to cross this river. Crossing the river, now we're off of inspired action. We're back to the monkey mind. Monkey mind's like, hey, look, perfectly good raft. Should I carry it on my back over the desert? No, that's stupid. Why would we do that? But meanwhile, you're like, oh, well, I'm going to grab my phone, I'll grab this pen, I'm going to take this little thing. But once it's a raft, once it's a gigantic, heavy thing, we can see what we're really doing. You need that thing for the moment. That thing gets you through the moment. And now, it's good. Let go of that thing. Let go of that boat. The inspired action will come for the next time you need the boat. The thing will happen the next time you need to get to the next part of the journey. So don't hold on to the boat. Know that the inspired actions are always coming to bring you the next boat when you need it. Now, last two things I want to talk about is overdoing it or underdoing it. Sometimes people will run away with one piece of inspiration. You know, you're just like, I got it! You know, like, and then you are just lighting the house with the one flame that you've got. And most things, it's not just like one inspiration and then you're going to muscle it all the way home. That doesn't happen. It's the inspiration, and it's a chain. There's a continual chain of inspiration. This one, and then this one, and then this one. You know, I just deleted my Facebook and my Instagram. No, not Instagram. No, I still have Instagram. I deleted my Twitter and my Facebook. I had tried to change my routine with them a whole bunch of different times, and I thought a bunch of different times about it, just like how I couldn't really rationalize what I was doing there, or like what it was what it was doing for me or anything. And I was finally just like in this state of perfect like coolness, and I was like, I'm deleting my Facebook and I'm deleting my Twitter right now before I change my mind. Inspired action. I tell you what, I'm so happy that I did that. You know, sometimes these inspirations will just come, and that's the thing. Okay, I got inspiration. I think I got to go do that. And you got to jump on them when they come. But overdoing it, taking the thing and then just running past all of the other signposts that might be going, you know, it's like, hey, inspired action. I've got a raft. I got to cross the river. Now I picked up the raft, I put it in my back, and I'm running across the savannah with it. What are you doing? I've got a good idea. Just one of them. It's on my back forever. You don't want to just ride the one good idea into the ground. And similarly, you don't want to be underdoing it, where you know you've got one idea and you're kind of like you're pursuing it, but then like an obvious boat comes your way, and you're like, I don't know, I'm kind of scared of boats. You know, that boat came for your idea. If you're either on the path and you're divinely jumping on to all these inspired actions, or you're just waiting, you know? There's somebody who has been being told, there's a spiritual lady who was listening to her video, and she was like, they kept telling me to go to Georgia. It's like, and I listened to the inspired action, but I tell you what, when I went to Georgia, I thought I was gonna be there for a week. It's 9 months later, and here I am in Georgia. Well, what about all the ladies, unlike this lady, who, when they're told by their inner self, go to Georgia, they can't do it. I can't, no. How many people are in America right now, living in a state or a town that they, in their heart, know they're not supposed to be there? They're supposed to move. They're supposed to take a trip. I've been saying that I'm going to move to there for years now. I've been saying that I'm going to go to Australia for years now. There must be something there for me. These are your inspirations. Your inspirations have great meaning. The longer you block these inspirations, the harder it's going to be sometimes to clean up the mess of that you're making inside yourself. And that's another thing too. Talk about underdoing it. I've got inspiration. Yes, I'm going to go write it down. You're going to write it down? Inspiration. Do it. That's inspiration. I got inspiration, I'm going to write it down. Okay, so maybe your life will change whenever you come back around to this notebook and decide to do this thing that you were inspired to do 6 years ago now, or whatever it might be. Important parts of it. So finally, patience. You know, we do not control the universe. And I mean, really, I already went over this, and I just want to go back around to it to sort of get to the thrust of this. But you can't remember the thing until you stop trying to. Then it's there, right? The inspiration comes when you're out of the way. The last thing I want to talk about, actually, because I had meant to write this down earlier and I forgot. I couldn't remember what it was I wanted to write down. But it's about flow. It's about getting into the flow state. And what is flow? There's a great book called The Rise of the Superman, something like that. Something along the lines of The Rise of Superman. And it's about extreme sportsmen, largely, canoers, hikers, mountain climbers, all these things. And about how, for the past 100 years, less than that, we have been breaking records on this planet like you would not believe. I mean, what they used to think a canoer could go down, like the height of like a waterfall, what the most you could do 10 years ago, and what the most being done now is, I mean, it's scary. I mean, doublings and triplings, and just, if you saw that movie Free Solo, where that guy's climbing that mountain that is an unclimbable, up until, we thought, an unclimbable mountain by himself with nothing, no ropes, no anything. All of these advances in extreme sports come from the flow state. Getting into the flow state is essentially bringing inspired action to life. The people who get to the flow state for free soloing and mountain climbing, they will literally tell you that they just know everything they're doing is just an inspired action. Their hand goes to the place, and there it is. There's the grip they need. Do you want to know why it has been so much easier for these people to reach this state of flow, this state of inspired action, and it's been so difficult for us? Because their lives are on the line. When you are free soloing, a wrong move means death. When you are going down a mountain and off huge ramps on skis, the wrong move means your life. This changes everything. All of these extreme sportsmen have trained themselves to put themselves into these difficult situations and reach into a part of themselves which is pure, inspired action. We call it flow, but it is just inspiration flowing through us end to end. Every move we make, a symphony, perfectly hitting every note, grabbing everything. And that is the place where we are all going to be looking to get ourselves into the future. A place of flow, which is even better than inspired action, because inspired action is just, oh, I took an action and it was inspired. What's flow? Flow is inspired action, inspired action, inspired action, inspired action. I like to think that when I come out and I sit here and I'm talking to you guys, that I have managed to get myself to a place of comfort with speaking and talking to people, that I'm always kind of coming from a place of inspired action. And I didn't write down flow in my chart, but here I got to the very end of class, and right as I was about to say, all right guys, I'm all done, I went, oh, flow, Jesse, you really wanted to talk about flow. And then I went, oh, cool, it's here. And that happens for me. That happens for me all the time. I have the conscious notion of what I want to do, and then I put myself on the path to do it, and I try not to worry too much about it, and it always kind of works out. And I can get myself into this state of flow while I talk to you, talk to my class, and have this experience with you tonight. Anyway, the law of flow, the law of inspired action, I think we've covered it pretty good. Next week, we're going to be covering cause and effect, and all the glorious things that I decide to bring up because of cause and effect. Cause and effect certainly has a lot of things that it lends itself to. So I'm going to have some fun with that next week. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more classes left. This is so awesome. I'm so glad that I've been able to do this for you guys. If you do have any questions that come out afterwards, you can find me on Instagram. I am the Phoenix149, and drop me a message and I will answer the question next time in class. Thank you so much for joining me. Join me next Monday, and thank you, Michael, for filming all this for us. And that's all. Love you guys. See you next time.